This video is sponsored by Fantic. If I had a nickel for every comment my Gundam video got correcting my rash judgment towards Entry Grade Gundams, I'd have enough money to buy an Entry Grade Gundam. Which isn't a lot, but only because Entry Grade Gundams are really reasonably priced. Yes, after familiarizing myself with the taste of my own foot, you all told me to give Entry Grade Gunpla a chance for two very specific reasons that I really didn't expect. So, I bought this, the one you all told me to buy,
and I'm gonna follow your advice by not caring whether or not I tear it to bits.
Hi, I'm Jaxom, and I was wrong, okay? I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. I said Entry Grade Gundam kits are for babies. I said there's no reason to buy them, because they're too simple to entertain my mature sensibilities. I thought other Gundam fans were as big on random difficulty fetishism as I am, but no, turns out most people care about quality and what looks best in practice. It's funny, because entry grades are often better than their high-grade counterparts. The funny thing is that Entry Grade RX is probably the most anime-accurate one.
The EG hate was undeserved. EG RX 78 is really good.
That argument is why I bought this model. Apparently, it's simply the best, most accurate version of this mech, despite it being a simple, affordable kit. But that's not my favorite argument to prove that I'm a big idiot who didn't do enough research. Others informed me that the benefit of EGs to an adult fan is their function as practice kits. Not kits to practice building Gundams, but kits to practice breaking Gundams. In that last video, I learned how to enjoy the finer details of Gundam building, like panel lining and getting in there with high grit sponges to buff away the nubs and the mold lines. And as enlightening as it was to lean into the nitty-gritty process, I used a very nice real-grade kit to do it, and made a lot of mistakes along the way that cannot be undone. Once you remove plastic, you can't add it back. Once you've glued, you can't unglue. And once you've painted, you risk also getting into Warhammer. Basically, EGs let you practice with a low-stakes, low-cost kit. I was totally blind to this concept because that is not how the kits are marketed. The box only advertises its simplicity, how you don't need any tools or glue or a frontal lobe. And I already own at least 2 of those, so what's the point? Past just sanding and panel lining markers, there's water decals, paint, glue to fuse mold lines, paint, weathering, battle damage, paint. And since I'm not gonna paint, I decided to try the other techniques using these 2 entry grade kits. Since Grandpa Gundam is allegedly the nicer kit, I chose this one to see just how many mistakes I could get out of the way early in the process. One of my absolute favorite pieces of advice that I've ever heard from anyone is fail faster. So that's what I'm gonna try to do, because I had something a little bit bolder and a little bit dumber in mind for the RX-782. Okay, my first dumb idea as I began my snipping and my sanding was to test out this, a mini cordless rotary tool sent to me by Fantic. The first stages of sanding, where I'm really just trying to remove excess nub material, is easily the most annoying and most exhausting part of the process. And though the internet told me that rotary tools aren't ideal for Gunpla, because they're harder to control and risk melting the plastic from high speeds, I didn't really care if I made some mistakes. If I happened to melt some huge holes in the plastic, call that a happy accident. We'll say that's battle damage. The form factor of the tool was significantly easier to control than I expected, because it's not a big chunky Dremel. It's cordless, rechargeable, and absolutely tiny. It comes stowed away very neatly in what I like to call the shape, which contains a country diner pie spinner of accessories. I kinda thought it wasn't gonna work at all until I realized adjusting it to a higher speed actually caused a lot less damage and gave me a lot more control. As long as I didn't leave it sitting in one spot against the surface, it didn't cause any melting. Building Gunpla is a very meditative experience to me. Even at that high speed, the motor is the quietest I have ever heard on a rotary tool. Like, this is this is what it sounds like. It's pretty good, and even though I only needed it for a few stages of this particular process, it wasn't a chore to pick it up, pop it out, do what I need, and put it away. As seamless and as easy as picking up a screwdriver. Which is funny, cause they also sent me a screwdriver, which I did not use for this project because it does not have screws. There's no time to go into detail, but it has all of the convenience of the F2 rotary tool with incredible precision for small repair and hobby jobs, and a 5-gear system for adjustable screw-driving torque. Click the links in the description to get 36% off of the F2 Master Rotary Tool with the code JETKUSOF2, or 43% off of the E2 Ultra Electric Screwdriver with code JETKUSOE2. Links below. You have now been called to action. Anyway, naturally, I rightly screwed up a few pieces with my very slippery hands, but nothing that couldn't be polished up by the higher grit sponges after the fact. And soon enough, I had a cleanly sanded, nicely assembled Gundam. Or so I thought, as I started to use this little weathering kit, adding rust and gunk and shape. Something unexpected happened. The whole time I was sanding, especially on the white parts of the kit, I was thinking, what's the point of this if I'm just gonna cover these parts in fake dirt and rust? Why spend all this effort to clean and smooth every part and every nub and every mold line when it's barely visible one way or the other? Why take a shower in the morning if I'm gonna go to the comic book shop later and be around Yu-Gi-Oh players anyway? I mean, for God's sake, I made sprue goo for this. Do you know what sprue goo is? Sometimes, when you fit two parts together, there's a visible line where they meet. Bandai generally does a good job hiding these lines in places where two panels of a mobile suit would realistically be separate parts. But other times, like on the shins of both of my entry grade kits, the line is super obvious and annoying. That's where model glue comes into play. Unlike normal glue, it doesn't simply adhere. It works by chemically melting the plastic and fusing it together as one piece. Unfortunately, this process leaves a grand line of discoloration between the parts. Discoloration doesn't matter if you're gonna paint the kit, but if you aren't gonna paint the kit, you have to ensure the glue is the same color as the plastic. So you take your nippers and you cut up the runners into tiny little bits and put them in a jar with some super thin model cement. You wait for hours upon hours until the glue fully melts the plastic, stirring it occasionally with a toothpick, and now you have liquid plastic in the same color as your part. So when you fuse them together, the middle line isn't discolored and you don't have to paint. That's sprue goo. Cool, right? I thought so too. But why am I doing all of this if I'm just gonna smear dirt all over the kit? Well, that's what I thought, anyway. So even though I did sand, and I did sprue goo, I also got lazy. I skipped a few parts, missed a few details, left a few scratches, used the sander without bothering to go back over it with higher grits, thinking they wouldn't be visible, cause those mistakes have never been terribly visible on any prior kit I've done. No, my friend. If but one sprue nub remains, it'll catch the weathering powder in all of its crevices, making it stand out like a pimple before prom night. It looks so cool on well-sanded pieces, providing a crazy sense of scale and reality. And the process is absurdly easy, enjoyable, and basically mess-free. Unfortunately, since weathering makes lazily assembled pieces look even worse than if you hadn't bothered at all, I kinda have to go through the rigor of sanding and seam fusing if I want to get to the really fun and easy part. I wrote a very simple mnemonic device to help you remember this principle. Before you weather, whenever you weather, endeavor to feather with delicate pressure and your sander held carefully taut. For whether you weather or whether you'll never, it counts whether you like it or not. Remember that, because I'm gonna have a pop quiz next time. Another mistake on the first kit. I did the weathering before I tried out the water decals that I bought. They're like temporary tattoos, basically. You cut them off the sheet and dip them in water, which allows them to separate from the backing card and activates them. Unlike stickers, which are super raised from the surface, annoying to place, and look like stickers, water decals lay fairly flush, they're easy to adjust after placed, and look like stickers. Better stickers, at least. I highly doubt these would adhere very well if the surface is dirty as hell, so with these mistakes made, I moved on to the Grandpa Gundam, and to my final experiment. I wanted to really see the difference between lazy building practices, aka the bare minimum that the entry grade box encourages you to put in, and the high effort advanced techniques that I've been learning. To that end, I went all out. Careful thorough sanding, sprue goo, fusing the mold lines, water decals, panel lining, not painting, hella weathering. On half of it.
Now why would you do that? Why would you do that? It's ridiculous.
I did not utilize the magic of buying 2 of them. On the right, you see every trick in the book that I'm capable of doing, and on the left you see, well, basically how I started out building Gunpla. Just kinda going for it. No detail work, not even flush cutters, nothing. Meanwhile, on the left, I learned some things even now. I went super freeform with the decals, chasing what I alone thought looked cool. And in doing so, I found that I could use decals to cover up any lingering discoloration from nub marks, making the kit cleaner than I thought was possible without paint. Honestly, I think it's a really neat art piece, an exploration of progress, both in skill and in dedication. I'm proud of this build. There's a lot of stuff I could get better at, in general, I'm sure, over the years, but I've tried most of the major advanced techniques apart from, like, paint, really elaborate kit bashing stuff, and battle damage. Sorry, bud, but sacrifices have to be made for progress. What am I thinking? This is ridiculous. I spent days working on this. Which means I should practice with this one. In art, one learns anatomy before they can develop a style. In writing, one learns structure and grammar so you know when and how to break the rules. In putting aside the need for perfection the first time, every time, we advance and approach perfection without even realizing it. This is what practice is, and I should have thought of that when I first talked about entry grades. I was wrong when I said you don't need to buy an entry grade, and I accept that mistake with grace. But I was right when I said entry grades are for babies, because Gunpla is for everyone, and everyone is babies. Like babies, we never stop needing opportunities to make mistakes and learn new foundations to grow even higher. So get out there, try some entry grades, and screw around with toxic chemicals for a bit. Get your hands wet. With water, not the toxic chemicals. Have some fun, and maybe, along the way, you'll learn a thing or two. Once again, click the links in the video description to get 36% off of the F2 Master Mini Cordless Rotary Tool with code JETKUSOF2, or 43% off of the Fantic E2 Ultra Electric Screwdriver with code JETKUSOE2. Click like, click subscribe, and click another video of mine to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, this is JetKuso, and I'll see you next time. This channel is made possible by my Patreon supporters, like my Diamond patrons LUCID, LANA, CHOOKA Bear, and RAZU RION, my Titan patrons CR107, Gusano, Banana Jones, Chell, Douglas Fern, my Hyper patrons Trouble, Mudorios, Orio, Alyssa, Gretlein, Mannsky, Forrest, DC, HeartlineDai, Kevin, Haji, Sam Caesars, Jim 17, and Hateincarnate, and all of my base patrons that you see over there on the side. Thanks everyone for supporting the channel, bye!